Dear citizens, I am Padmini Arhant, author, presenter, padminiarhant.com, prakriti.padminiarhant.com, representing the Divine Mission. Welcome to the sequel Israel-Middle East conflict. Dear citizens in Gaza and Lebanon, Assalamu alaikum. Hello to citizens in Lebanon who are affected in this latest aggression by Israel, especially the developments in the past week until now. I begin with my sincere condolences to the victims, the families in Gaza, the rest of Palestinian territory, as it happens to be affected as well, and now lately the citizens in Lebanon, and that goes for the citizens in Israel as well. There is a pattern here. There is also this compulsive behavior on the aggressor's part to indiscriminately pursue civilian population, inflicting massive destruction, damages, almost to the point of no return, whether it be in Gaza or Lebanon. With the latest United Nations General Assembly resolution that was passed in September during the UN General Assembly session in 2024, that resolution categorically demands Israel's aggression to end. I would say the UN General Assembly has been generous to have provided 12 months when it should be immediate and should not even be prolonged more than 6 months, given the territory, whether it be Gaza or West Bank and the East Jerusalem. I mean, there is hardly anything left of Palestinian territory, to say the least. In order for Israel to evacuate for complete troops withdrawal, it doesn't require 12 months. It could all be expedited within 3 to 6 months. That has to begin now. Israel's carte blanche authority granted by United States with generous financing, weapons cache, logistics, state-of-the-art technology. The culmination of all of these provisions is what has led to massive casualties in Gaza, and that goes for Lebanon now. Now we are looking at a situation where Israel seems to have no strategy, no end game, so to speak, aimlessly targeting nations and their civilian population with little or no concern, whether it be children, infants, young, old, sick, and even the ones who happen to be going about their life, walking on the streets. They all are apparently a fair game and a target. And that is how Israel's, the so-called precision targets, have been demonstrated so far. United Nations General Assembly resolution is a very serious and the most genuine resolution. This has to be adhered to by the state of Israel if Israel considers itself a sovereign nation. Like I mentioned in my publication, United Nations General Assembly is where the state of Israel was recognized and formalized as a sovereign state. There was no such thing as United Nations Security Council then, either to veto such decision, as it has been the pattern so far, That has been the only primary function of United Nations Security Council. That is the reason why I had repeatedly mentioned that United Nations Security Council has been long defunct, not delivering what they were and are expected to do until now. It has been a miserable failure with this veto power among 5 members since the inception of United Nations Security Council. Those 5 members have their own track record being colonizers and aggressors in different measure and different time frame. The idea of United Nations Security Council itself is redundant. They have proven themselves as such. It is not just me saying it. Majority view of UNSC is that UNSC is only there to veto anything that is supposed to be resolved and mitigated to prevent massive casualties, and again that goes for humanitarian crisis as well. But United Nations Security Council, all that they have done is, depending on who is against whom, but predominantly it is United States that has vetoed most of the times, especially when it has been against Israel. Regardless of how many violations, that has been considered as such by the rest of the world, but United States has always declined to view Israel's violations as a crime, and again not even aligning that with any other nation if they were to commit such violations against anybody else. So there is not only double standards, but there is also this big hypocrisy being maintained by United States, unfortunately, up until now. That has also contributed to United Nations Security Council having become almost irrelevant. The crisis remain unresolved as a result, and that has only been a nightmare for the victims, such as the Palestinians in this Palestinian peace process. Now, with United Nations General Assembly, on the other hand, being represented by nations, these are sovereign nations, not just some organizations without any legitimacy, or they have been arbitrarily set up to suit anyone's interest and agenda. These, such as AIPAC or IAC as they call themselves, Israeli American Committee, and similar political lobby groups. These are sovereign nations represented as United Nations, as the name suggests, around nearly 200 nations, if all of them are granted the full membership status. Unlike Palestine has been even declined to be an observer on observer status, an honorary member of United Nations, which in itself is a violation. When you come to think of it, the tiniest nation in the South Pacific Islands, a name that most people had never even heard of, Palau, in the likelihood of being mistaken for the Indian rice dish with phonetic similarity. Palau and other small nations in the coastal regions of the world could be granted United Nations membership. The same has been declined to Palestine, that has been around even before the creation of the State of Israel in the past century. There is obvious discrimination, and that also needs to be addressed effectively. United Nations members, majority of them have recognized Palestine as a sovereign state that deserves and merit statehood, independence, sovereign rights, territorial integrity, self-determination. These are all being identified and recognized by majority member nations of the United Nations as an international body. Even recently, some of the Western members, Norway, Spain, Greece, Ireland, Sweden, etc. These members in Europe, Northern Europe and Western Europe, they have come forward and openly recognized Palestine as a sovereign state and even made recommendations to that effect for Israel to recognize Palestine as an independent state and begin withdrawal. That is, occupation to end in Palestine and allow Palestine to exist as an independent state, independent nation, which of course has not been complied with by Israel. Not surprising at all. Now, with United Nations General Assembly resolution that categorically demands Israel to end occupation and colonization is to be taken seriously. Like I mentioned, the creation of the State of Israel was approved and formalized by the same United Nations General Assembly. Considering that process in precedence, Israel declining to comply with United Nations resolution would typically means that Israel's sovereignty, Israel's statehood is being made irrelevant by Israel due to the violation of this General Assembly resolution. Israel is in a dilemma. Like I mentioned, it would definitely be in Israel's interest, and it's not a matter of choice. It is a necessity. Israel's recognition and respect for United Nations General Assembly resolution and compliance with the resolution beginning the end of occupation, colonization, and complete withdrawal of troops. That goes for the release of all detainees as hostages. Israel has been talking about Israeli hostages with Hamas, but Israel has held many Palestinians, including minors, in the detention centers, calling that as administrative detention centers, that has committed incredible atrocities. As a matter of fact, people might not know that the administration detention center in Israel is the prototype for what is known as the Guantanamo Bay in the Cuban territory for United States detainees. United States holding the detainees of terrorism and whatnot. Again, that also is another controversy, considering that many of them are not even provided any kind of legal course, no habeas corpus. They have arbitrarily been held in Guantanamo Bay for years and years, since 2001. Since the 9/11 attack, many have been apprehended from wherever, and especially those of Islamic faith. They have been the majority, and I would say almost all of them who are identified as Muslims of Islamic faith. They are the ones who have been brought and held in Guantanamo Bay as detainees, and they've been held over there for decades now. Like, as I said, since it happened in 2001, the 9/11 attack, since then, this is what has been going on with every administration. The administrative detention in Israel holding minors, the Palestinian minors, as detainees, and essentially they are being held as hostages, and all of them have to be released unconditionally so that they can return to their Palestinian homes in Gaza or West Bank, wherever they come from, and that goes for East Jerusalem as well. These are all the requirements that have to be met by Israel without any further delay, since this has been going on for decades, and the latest Gaza war is something that has horrified the international community, that the so-called sovereign nation, Israel, and that too touted as democracy, could be so ruthless and brutal in the name of self-defense and commit such horrendous crimes against humanity, and not to mention as the Holocaust victims. What difference is there between whoever committed the Holocaust, in this instance the Nazis? Certainly not the Arabs, especially Palestinians or the Lebanese, Iranians, or Yemenis for that matter. The state of Israel that is basically surpassed and exceeded what the Nazis had done in the past century. How does Israel and their allies, United States and others, who are always in the front line, as the firing squad, verbatim and with military ammunitions, to refute any kind of genuine concerns from anyone against these crimes against Palestinians, when they become so defensive and even very aggressive in terms of their response? They even go as far as branding anyone posing any questions or sharing their genuine thoughts and concerns against Israel's violations as nothing but anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is another convenient protection strategy for Israel and allies. Anyone who has any genuine concern about the status quo in Palestine, with Israel's occupation and colonization, dehumanization of Palestinians, all those people, regardless of wherever they are from, they are all branded and slated as terrorists. Yeah, even terrorists, but then predominantly anti-Semitic. Here is a dichotomy. While Israel, United States, and Western allies continuously accuse anyone expressing genuine concerns and thoughts on Israeli oppression and persecution of Palestinians in the last 8 decades, these same Western members, beginning with Israel and predominantly United States in the forefront, have been responsible for the creation of many terror outfits, beginning with Al Qaeda and ISIS in the wake of Arab Spring that was orchestrated by then Barack Obama presidency, Obama administration in 2010. 2011, the ISIS terror outfits were created, funded, armed, and even provided medical assistance, medical treatments, and surgeries by Israel and United States in the battleground against Syria, while they have been the fostering forces for terror outfits in the world. For them to accuse others as such is indeed the biggest irony of all. It is important to know that Al Qaeda was created by then National Security Advisor under former Democrat President Jimmy Carter. The former National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski was responsible for the creation of Al Qaeda, the ex-Mujahideens in Afghanistan who were trained by United States to battle against then occupying forces, the former Soviet Union in Afghanistan. So Al Qaeda was the creation of United States, going back to then former Democrat President Jimmy Carter administration under National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski. To continue the tradition, the Nobel Peace Prize winning Barack Obama presidency headed Obama administration in 2010-2011 created ISIS on their behalf, while Bush-Cheney administration as the Republican administration were responsible for recruiting the notorious private army Black Waters, known for committing crimes against humanity, especially in Iraq and then in Afghanistan and even in Ukraine, forcing them to change their operation and the company name from Blackwaters to XC Enterprise, founded and represented by Eric Prince, in state sponsored and unleashed state terrorism in foreign land. The status quo being the Western foreign policy and true nature of politics, accusing anyone else as terrorist supporters and empathizers of terrorism is ultimate denial with hypocrisy ad nauseum. That is not going to really be effective, to say the least. For now, the international community is well aware of the Palestinian plight, and especially in the latest Gaza war, the way Israel has conducted in the decimation and indiscriminate killing of Palestinians, assuming all of them as Hamas members, the ground incursions to airstrikes and the continuous onslaught courtesy United States and the rest of the allies. It has been horrendous crime that has been committed not just by Israel but collectively by the West up until now. For them to turn around and blame the other side, whether it be Hezbollah or Houthis in Yemen and Iran, whoever has come to the Gazans' aid amid Israel's state terrorism against Gaza, there is discriminatory angle when the West is protecting Israel, claiming that Israel has the right to self-defense. Accordingly, Israel can continue with shelling and bombing endlessly, whereas when the victims, the Gaza population, with minimal, Hamas's military capability has been quite challenging for Israel in terms of their operation. Nonetheless, when one compares the military assets that Israel has at its disposal with that of Hamas, Israel has disproportionate military advantage, again provided and aided by United States. United States is the benefactor to Israel in many aspects, not only in terms of financing the continuous aid that has been pouring to Israel since the creation of Israel in Palestine. Until now, Israel is the sole recipient of US financial aid, together with military, technology, and all these various access that are being granted to Israel, as though Israel is another state of the Union of United States. As a matter of fact, even the states within United States, they may not have that many unfettered access to federal assistance in the United States as Israel has been granted up until now. That also goes for Israel's lobby. It is not just limited to AIPAC. There are several other representatives that are active in Israeli lobby. They do have significant clout and influence over United States politics. This is across the aisle, whether it be the members in politics, that is legislative branch. It goes without saying, every administration heeds Israel's directives, regardless, Democrat or Republican. When Israel says target Syria, they just go without any problems. And when Israel says strike the military commander of Iran, Qasem Soleimani, the Republican president, without any hesitation, complies with Israel's instruction, order. So that is the case, that is the status quo with the United States politics, where US administration and legislative branch, without any reluctance or resistance, they comply with Israel and Israeli lobby. And again, the Israeli lobby, as I said, it's nothing but the recycle of American taxpayer money to and fro. It's American taxpayer money that is being generously provided to Israel, which in return comes via Israeli lobbies to make sure that the members in United States politics, the legislative branch as well as the administration, always remain faithful to Israel's interest and Israel's endless financial reliance, as well as Israel's hegemonic dominance in the region. It's understood there is mutual interest when it comes to hegemonic goals in the Middle East. This is both United States and Israel share hegemonic aspirations in the Middle East to be dominant players. It is not the case of who is exerting more control and authority over whom. It is obvious it's Israel that is now having more influence and authority over United States. Otherwise, United States could have easily declined on many occasions that this is not in United States' interest, and therefore not wanting to get involved in what Israel might consider that as a strategic advantage to Israel in that part of the world. Quite often, it so happens that it's the nations that United States have been involved in militarily, none of those nations ever posed any kind of threat to United States or, for that matter, American public. But yet United States have been dragged into those military invasions and occupation at Israel's behest. This is the scenario that compels anyone to come to the conclusion that it is not United States that has Israel as its proxy. It so happens that Israel is the one that has enough influence and dominance over United States, despite being the recipient of American taxpayer financial aid to military, like as I said, technology and so on, since the inception of Israel up until now. They're running into almost 8 decades. I'm Padmini Arhant signing off right now. I will return with remaining segments on this topic. Thanks for watching.